Hi guys, so it's been really flattering, I think is probably the right word, to see how much the TikTok videos have resonated with people. Just in case you aren't following me on there, it's Amy Reynolds Home. And what I decided is that there's only so much you can put into a TikTok video in terms of explanation. And I wanted to be able to give a bit more insight and explanation as to our story here in this house, the renovations, the interim renovations, which are mostly what I'm sharing at the moment on TikTok, and all of those are being done on a budget, a very slim budget, because in the long term we have bigger plans for this house. So when we moved here in 2020, the back end of 2020, we knew that everything that we were going to do immediately, and I say immediately, but it's been 5 years, had to be really low cost. And here we are 5 years later. Not much of the longer term work has been done or even thought of. We've had ideas, but we haven't really sat down and put those plans in motion. However, saying that, I think we are on the verge of having the initial talks with an architect to just give us some ideas, feedback on the ideas that we've had, and see what we can really make of this house. But what I thought I would do as our first video is just give a little bit more of our background in this home and the changes that we have made. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy this as much as the TikTok videos have been going down. So like I said, we moved here at the back end of 2020. We moved from a 2-bed Victorian house, and it was actually during our walks during lockdown, like those infamous, however, we were allowed up for like 40 minutes or 60 minutes a day. I can't even remember what it was. But we used to walk in the woods at the back of the house. And I think it was Sam that spotted the house and just said, oh my God, that's like my dream house. It's got about just under an acre of land with it. So there was land there for Sam to be able to do his things. And then the house itself, when I saw it, it just looked, you know, when just a house stands out to you. It's blue timber clad, so it's quite unique, and the setting is absolutely beautiful. The one thing I will say is, whilst when we first actually viewed the house in person, we got a bit of a shock with the inside. I don't think they've done much to it I think they were here for like 27 years, the 27 years that they'd lived here. But what they had done is poured their heart and souls into the garden. We cannot take any credit for just how beautiful the garden's developed throughout the year. It's been really well thought of. I'm gonna hold my hands up now and say that we perhaps haven't looked after it like you should. Neither of us have like naturally green fingers. So at some point in the future, I'm sure we'll have to like look at adding bits back in that we perhaps should have replanted or taken a bit of better care of. But yeah, so definitely the setting is what sold it. And then the house itself, it was a lot bigger. I mean, it was on the listing, it was a 5-bedroom house. It's not really a 5-bedroom house. There's a room downstairs which Sam uses as his office, but that was kind of counted as a bedroom. I wouldn't say that that would be a nice bedroom to have. So I would say it was really a 4-bedroom house, but we were coming from a 2-bedroom house, and it was a lot bigger. And at the time it was just Sam and I. So we didn't think that there would be any hope of us being able to afford such a step up. But in actual fact, I think it was around the time that there wasn't the stamp duty. The stamp duty had been taken off, so that definitely went in our favour, as did, I think, house prices that at that time had kind of not lowered, but they weren't growing or increasing as they have done in the last, like in recent years. And we just got really lucky that when we did the maths, we suddenly realised that actually there was a slim hope we might be able to afford this house if we got it at the right price. So we did a very old school approach in that we wrote to the owners. We literally wrote a handwritten letter and just said, this is our dream home, like it's the house that we can kind of see bringing our family up. We're really interested. We'd love to come and view it when the time comes, because at that time you weren't allowed to do any like in-person viewings. And for the next, God, I think it must have been months, we would carry on doing the walk and looking at it and imagining like if we could ever live here. And so much time had gone and we hadn't heard anything back from the owner, and we just thought, okay, he's like obviously not interested. And then I think it was one random day, we heard back and just said, oh, I'm really sorry, we found the letter in one of the flower beds. It was like all kind of smudged, and like the rain had obviously got to it, so it was hard to make out what we'd written. And that is really what got the ball rolling. And I believe from memory there were 3 other offers, but I think perhaps what he liked about us was that our intention for this house was to make it a family home. We weren't developers, we didn't want to flatten it and start all over again and build, you know, what we could with it. We kind of just wanted to create a family home. And so by the time everything got done, as I'm sure everybody knows, when it comes to buying a property and selling a property, there's always bumps in the road. And in actual fact for us, our buyers pulled out right at the last minute. And so we ended up having to do a little bit more of a rejig and really pull and pinch every penny we could to finally make it into this house. So we moved in at the end of November. And like I said, when we did the first initial house viewing, I remember my face just dropping, because the pictures on the what do they call it? Like not the brochure, but the pictures on the kind of listing, they didn't look too bad. It looked quite dated, but it didn't look, I don't know, it looked fine. It looked as though we could kind of get in there and we'd be absolutely fine. But then when we actually got inside, I suddenly realized how much it needed doing to it. Not just, I think I've said these in my TikTok videos, but it wasn't even just kind of a lick of paint here and decoration and things like that, which was all very dated. There was lots of wallpaper everywhere, like painted wallpaper. There was wallpaper that was literally coming off, and the carpets, they had quite an old dog, so you could see where the carpets had been soiled, and I don't think the carpets had been changed in a long time. And I think at that point thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can live in this house, knowing that we would really stretch ourselves and that we wouldn't be able to do much to it to begin with. It was at that point I kind of went, oh my God, I don't know if this is the right house, Sam, and started to have a few doubts. But we kind of talked ourselves back into it. Like I said, it wasn't just things like cosmetic things that needed doing to it. There was a lot of structural stuff in terms of all the windows are like still the original double glazed windows, like with metal frames. The heating system is from it's the original 1960s heating system, so we have a hot air system. But gosh, like if you find me someone that will come and clean a hot air system for a domestic house, then please write in the comments below, because we have tried again and there was just nobody that will come and clean the hot air system. So we had a lot of concerns about like air quality and things like that. The hot water system, again, it's like a very old system. I think it might be the original system as well. There's no insulation at all, absolutely no insulation in the house whatsoever. But the things I guess that kind of do go in our favor is because it is a timber frame. It's not just timber clad, it's timber frame. We knew that we'd be able to do a lot with the layout, and so we just kind of went for it. So here we are 5 years later. We moved in, and I remember for the first week I couldn't even bring myself to stay in the house. We still had our old house, and we basically used that time to focus all of our attention on getting 2 rooms livable. Our parents all came over and took turns at giving us a hand, giving it a real deep clean, because it just hadn't, it was just not, it just wasn't in perhaps the kind of condition that we would live in terms of like, yeah, cleanliness and things. Even the fireplace, I remember they wanted to charge us for the fireplace, and we said we're not paying that much for the fireplace. The bathroom, they said they were going to rip out the suite, and we were just like, crack on. In actual fact, they did take the fireplace with them, which was hilarious, so we just had like a hole in the wall for ages. But yeah, there was just lots of funny things. But what we did was, like I said, first week we got in here, we made the living room feel cozy and homely and our bedroom, and we started off with that. And what I thought I'd do in this video is kind of show you around the rooms, explain what we've done. I'm not going to go into what we hope to do, because I think at the moment, like, we're just speculating. We really haven't got an idea of what we can do until we speak to the architect. But yeah, so I'll show you around and explain how the house has evolved in the 5 years that we've been here, because since we have been here, we've had 2 kids. So things that we did initially, we had to rechange and rejig rooms around. But yeah, let me show you around. So this is the living room. As you can see, it has got such beautiful views up into the woods at the back, which were a real selling point. Just at that time, I think we'd go walking like every single day, so the thought of being able to just like roll out the back of the house and go up into the woods was a real win. And yeah, so we moved in and we changed the floor. There was like carpets down, but the carpets just had to go. They just were not something that I was going to feel comfortable walking around on. And I think for like literally a good year, we didn't have a rug on here. We just had like an old coffee table. The sofa we obviously already had. We painted, we replaced, like I said, the fireplace or the fire surround. It's an open fire. And other than kind of just painting the woodwork and the metalwork, and then this wall makes me so sad. Because, well, you can imagine 5 years ago, paneling was just kind of coming in, and I was like, yeah, brilliant, gonna do that. But I didn't really think about the fact that it would probably still be here 5 years later, if I'm completely honest. I thought we might be further along with our house renovations than we have been, which is a whole other story. But yeah, so we just replaced the flooring, painted. There was so much wallpaper on the walls, and unfortunately it has meant that the quality of the actual walls is like, they're not good, they're not smooth at all. So what I am actually hoping to do in this room is just give it a bit of a freshen up. I never really loved the white that I used in here. It's got like a bit of a violety, lilac-y tinge to it, and it also just showed to me something about when you choose paint colours. If you find a brand that you love, it's better just to stick with it. Like, I have used Craig and Rose or Craig and Ross for years now, and I really like their colours. I really like there's quite like a heritagey like aspect to their colours. And on the wall emulsion, I just went completely off kilter. I don't even know what made me do it, but it was like a really weird, I think it was like L decoration or something like that. And it just has never been something that I've loved. I've always wanted to replace it. So I think actually maybe later in the summer I might, because again, like I said to you, we've had like 2 kids since then, and Fred's went through a real phase of basically, can I show you that? Can you see? He basically went through a real phase of sending his cars off the sofa, so all of the woodwork is chipped. It basically just really needs a freshen up in here. I think I'm going to stick with the colour that I've done on the woodwork, because I actually still really love that. Just flip you back up there. But choose a different white, and then just maybe, not maybe, definitely rethink the cushions, because I think it's been a few years now since, do you remember when those like furry cushions are in? Ugh, literally hate them so much. So need to do something with this room at some point. Even like the TV stand, it's been up on the wall, it's been down off the wall because we've broken 3 TVs. And I think that was probably one of my very first upscaling projects back in our old house. So that has definitely seen better days. But yeah, like it was good. When we first moved in, it was like a huge difference to the rest of the house. And so it felt good. And then we come through to the dining room, which again, it was one of the very early rooms that we did. We haven't done a lot to it. It's not dressed. There's no, as you can see, light fixture still. I think Sam and I have always been quite money conscious. Neither of us have ever been like employed, so we've never had like a full-time job. We've always been self-employed, so I think it's always made us quite wary of spending money. And so we have fallen into this whole like trap of not finishing things. And now that I am predominantly at home with the kids, I'm still working, but it's like very sporadic. And just recently my youngest has gone to nursery, so now I do actually have a little bit of time 2 days a week to get on and do things. I'm kind of now starting to do the little finishes, but like I said, there's a lot of rooms in this house where there's no light fixtures, and there are just things that we should have probably done. But this is another room that perhaps needs a little bit of love and attention again now. I was mentioning at the start the hot air system. You can see one of the vents, but they're not exactly particularly attractive. But then again, like, this goes back to the whole thing of what are we doing with the house going forward, because there's no point changing those if we're not going to have a hot air system. So there's lots of big questions that we need to answer. But other than that, it's a really lovely room. It's got a beautiful view. It's nice and spacious, but do we need a separate dining room? I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, this is the dining room. So this was just a lick of paint. I always had like a bit of a question over whether I would try and restore the parquet flooring, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I think I will probably end up just grabbing a floor from UK Flooring Direct. If you are after good quality laminate flooring that is very, like, really inexpensive, I would recommend looking at the UK Flooring Direct website. We've used them a lot in this house and I'm really happy. In fact, you can see some of their floor here in the hallway. I just think it's a really good quality laminate. We actually used a Carnadine flooring in our old house when we renovated that, and I didn't love it. Like, I know people said it's really good because it's not hard and if you drop things on it and all of that stuff, but I didn't love like the softness of it, whereas this to me feels a bit more like a wooden floor, so to speak, and you don't have the upkeep and you can lay it yourself, all of those kind of positives, and obviously the cost. So yeah, the hallway, it was just a lick of paint. We had to box in, there's like a spiral staircase down to the utility room, Sam's office, and the garage down there. But it had like an old, what's it called? Spiral staircase that was quite flimsy. So when Freddie got a little bit older, we had to find a way to box that in so it was safer. So actually Sam kind of constructed that, and it's worked really well because I never really loved the look of it either. Another one of those light fixtures that we never got around to changing, because actually what I wanted to do in here was centralize the light, and yeah, it's another thing to do on the list. And then we've got our downstairs shower room in there. This is a room, the bathrooms in this house we've literally not done anything to. Let me just flip you around so you can see. So yeah, you can see it's all as it was when we moved in. Again, it's something that I'm playing with, giving a go this summer, maybe later in the summer, but maybe even try tiling because it's just the shower unit that needs tiling. This is our front porch. I did a painted tile floor. And I wanted a checkerboard. I used a colour on the ceiling as well. And yeah, it always makes me feel really happy when I walk past it. And I think I just really enjoyed doing something that I wasn't really sure I was doing. And it turned out really well. So yes, that is the front porch. Also, I think the other thing is, because we've got you can see into the front porch, every time we walked past it, it just like, it almost like brought the tidy up that we done in the hallway. It just looked so rubbish when you looked out there and you saw a crusty old front porch. So I was glad we did that. Then we've got our bathroom, our main bathroom. Again, haven't done anything to it at the moment. It is just full of children's paraphernalia and the original bath suite. So again, it's a project that I'm considering taking on at some point soon. And then we've got Freddie's room. So with Fred's, we didn't know, or we didn't find out whether I was having a boy or a girl. So we kind of did the whole kind of neutral nursery element to it. It needs a bit of personalisation now. It needs a bit of colour. I always feel really guilty when I see Lila's room, and it's so well thought out, and the colours, it's got loads of colours, it's very playful. And then poor Fred's has got like a really neutral nursery, but it's still cute. He's just obviously moved up into a big bed, well, not just, last summer. So I think we're kind of ready to take the sides down and just give this room a little bit of personality. And it gets really lovely light in the afternoon. He's obviously got his views of his slide out the back, and it just, yeah, it's a really nice room. This room, when we moved in, I'll insert like little pictures of how they looked before so you've got a reference, but it had black wallpaper with trees on it. The wardrobes were like that millennium silver, and it was not a room I enjoyed being in. But we changed the carpets. Obviously this didn't happen until so we moved in the December 2020. I got pregnant, or found out I was pregnant, in the February, and Fred's was born in the October. So we did this somewhere in the summer. And it hasn't been touched since. So yeah, other than adding the bed in and things like that, it needs a bit of an update, which is wild when I'm like, oh my gosh, we're updating rooms and I don't even know how long they're gonna be like that for. And then our bedroom was one of the rooms, by the way, before I take you in here, I haven't tied it up or anything like that, so there are clothes on the floor and things like that. But this was one of the 2 rooms we did as soon as we moved in. This colour is a Cragen Ross or Rose, I need to check what that one is, colour that I actually used in our old bedroom. I just find it like a really calming, relaxing colour. And we had to make such quick decisions when we moved in, so I just stuck with what I knew. But I have to say, like, I still love it. Like, it's still a colour that just makes me feel really, like, I love coming into this room and having the 2 kids and the breastfeeding and all of that when you spend a lot of time in your bedroom, and you're up in the middle of the night. It's just a really lovely room to kind of be in. And admittedly, I'd love to have a bit more time in here in the morning. Just to quickly show you as well the view from the windows, so beautiful. Is that gonna, yeah, so you just look up into the woods, which I love as well. So yeah, it was just like a new carpet, paint, and we brought the old furniture. There's been a new bed in here since we've lived in here, and chest of drawers, which I don't love. Again, it just shows if you rush decisions, you tend to live to regret them, is what I am learning with the house. And then the small window at the back actually didn't have a blind at it until Lila was born, and she was born at the start of spring. And she was obviously sleeping in our bedroom at that point, so we had to kind of do something so she wouldn't keep waking up at the crack of dawn, because that was not fun. We were talking about that this morning because she's still kind of waking up. And then just to give you a bit of context, so this bedroom, again, there's stuff everywhere, but this bedroom is now what is the spare bedroom for when parents or guests come to stay. And if Sam and I decide that one of us needs a bit more sleep and not to be woken up with the kids, quite often one of us will come in here with earplugs. But I do really love it. But originally, this was my gym room. So the gym room was also like my office. So I used to have like one of those folding desks on that wall. And both of us used this room. It got used every single day. We had a bench, we had weights. We had like some other bits and pieces of working out equipment, and it was so, I mean, and that is why we actually changed, oh, it's gonna go out of focus. So there was like just a normal centralized light there, and we changed it to spotlights, which now obviously don't really work for a bedroom. We'd never have a spotlight in the bedroom. In fact, when we redo the house, I think that's one thing I will not have anywhere is a spotlight. But there's no point changing that for the time being because it is only the guest room. And we miss our gym room. It has to be set. Not having that space in the house where you can just go get a workout done and then crack on with the day and it doesn't interfere too much with the day is something that I really miss. Although Sam built a summer house up at the top and he uses that, but for me, I don't know, I just don't have the inclination to go out there. I took all of my gym stuff up there and I've probably done like 3 workouts up there ever. So yeah, this is now the guest room, what was our little home gym studio thing. I love this mirror. If anybody needs a good mirror, I think it was called Mirror Maison and it was very affordable and I think it just looks really, really good. And there is a video on my TikTok about this picture wall if you are interested in adding a bit of colour to the room but not spending too much. Randomly as well, we've got to touch up some paint because this room actually does have underfloor heating, because it didn't matter that it was the wooden floor when it was the gym, but obviously when it became a bedroom, we were just worried that it was a little bit chillier in the winter. So Sam had some old underfloor heating from the summer house and it has made its way under the floor in this room, which is the other good thing about this floor, because if for any reason you need to pick it up and relay it, it's really quite easy to do. So this is another UK Flooring Direct floor. And also something just to point out as well. So I mentioned to you about the fact that this house has quite a lot of bigger things that we need to kind of make decisions on, and one of them being the windows. And the problem that we have, because the windows are not, you know, up to modern spec and they're metal framed, and also because there isn't very much insulation in this house, we do tend to get our fair share of mold. And over the years we've found ways of really kind of staying on top of it and managing it. I think as well we just had no experience of it when we moved into this house. So I remember like the first winter, so we kind of cycled through that kind of wet period because we moved in afterwards, that was it. Because it's always when like there's more moisture in the air around like autumn time and also like into the springtime. It was the first autumn, so just actually around when Fred was born, and I remember thinking there was like a really strange smell coming from my wardrobe, and I was like, what is that smell? It smells like someone's been like smoking a doob in here. Anyway, I had like a seagrass basket that had all of my old like leather belts. When I took it out, I kid you not, there was like green fur covering this like seagrass basket. So as I said, we've found ways in which we can stay on top of it now. We have like a dehumidifier, which is quite like a big industrial one, which goes in the hallway, and we just run that the minute that you can kind of feel that there's more humidity in the air. I can actually feel it. I feel like I'm like the mold. I can smell it like really quickly. I've got like a what's it called? Not a greyhound nose, what's it called? Bloodhound nose when it comes to mold. I can literally smell it instantly. And also we've become a lot better at like keeping an eye on the areas where we know could be prone to mold. Fred's has got like a air filter system in his room. We have the Karcher, which we use almost like every day in those winter months where you get all the condensation on your windows. So we keep on top of the condensation, never let it rest there, so then the mold can obviously build from the moisture. So yes, we found our little ways of dealing with it, but it would be so nice to get to a point where it's not something you have to think about every single day when it comes to those autumnal into winter months. And yeah, it would be nice just to have just not that as a factor. I think some nice proper windows will be also, I think as well, I didn't even tell you this, but there's windows in this house that have expired, so you can't even really see them out through them properly. So I just said to Sam, I was like, imagine what it's like when we can just stare out the window. I can actually look out of it properly. There's probably going to be more light coming into this house when we actually get around to doing these things than we can even begin to imagine. So I will just spin you around now to explain this room. So This room began life as Sam's office. This is obviously Lila's nursery. I am obsessed with the wallpaper, actually obsessed with it, which is one of the reasons why I feel so guilty about Freddie's room, because I knew I was having a girl, and I went to town with kind of just making this room feel really whimsical and doing all the little details and things like that mostly before she came, to be fair. So this was originally Sam's office before he moved downstairs. Then it became the guest room when Freddie was born, and originally like that's where we used to have like the guests before it turned into Freddie's room. And then when I found out I was pregnant with Lila was a real surprise. I wasn't at that point I thought I was going back to work. In fact, I was literally at work when I found out. I had my like first job back after a few months off. Not after having Freds, I went back to work quite quickly, but I finished my kind of long-term 8-year contract because I used to work internationally, so I'd be away for like 22 weeks of the year, and it just wasn't really that cohesive with having a young baby. So unfortunately that time in my career ended, and I kind of was at the point where I was starting to look for other things, and I just basically was stood in a pit lane in Spa, and I remember thinking, God, my back really hurts. Like I can't be this out of practice. It's not been long enough, but why is my back so sore? And it was a 24-hour endurance race. So then I was thinking, the next morning I went in to go and do like the morning hits. So like the morning interviews of what's happened overnight. So I was in the pit lane, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was going around to interview everybody. And as I was talking, I was like, I think I'm gonna throw up. Like I think I'm actually gonna vomit. What's going on? Anyway, if you know any of you have been pregnant before, you just know that feeling, don't you? And because I'd already had Freds, I had this feeling that I was pregnant, but I just didn't want to. I didn't even want to like have to think about it and process it at that point. So I thought I'd just get this race out done with. Got home. Anyway, I got home and I started like vomiting like every single morning. So I think I got home on the Monday or the Sunday. And on the Thursday I was dropping Freds into nursery, and on the way back I was like, right, I had to, I think, wait a whole hour before I dropped him in because I just couldn't stop being sick. And I was like, oh, okay, it could be time to do a pregnancy test. And I remember calling Sam up, who was going through security, and I was like, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant again. And I was like, how can this be true? And he was like, oh my God, that's so great. And I was like, it's not great. We had, like, Lila was on her way, and this time round, because I was just a little bit overwhelmed with the thought of going through that whole cycle of pregnancy and early baby days again so soon. I just said to Sam, I was like, I need to know like what's happening, like let's just find out. So we did one of like the really early gender tests, found out I was having a little girl, and I think that's kind of I think then I just really kind of lent into embracing each day as it came. The pregnancy was quite tough as well. I had like E. coli at the time and I didn't realise, but I had E. coli for the first 10 weeks until it was picked up at one of my very early appointments. So the kind of joy that I found in that time was preparing to have a little girl. And this is kind of really the result. So yeah, so this is Lila's room. I think the only room I haven't showed you now is the kitchen, which was actually the video that went viral on TikTok. I had absolutely no intention or anything. I just started my TikTok home account purely because I've always done like little before and after videos whenever we've done any like house things, just for like, I don't know why, I've always really enjoyed it. Like I've always loved watching other people's like before and afters, and so yeah, so I just thought I'd do, because I knew that this was going to be quite a big project. I wanted to document the whole thing, and I started playing with TikTok. I wasn't even on TikTok before. I thought TikTok was for kids, so I didn't ever go on and use it. And then I was putting, I think, a few videos up here and there, and then we did the kitchen makeover. And the kitchen makeover literally came because I was like, right, obviously not going to spend lots of money on the kitchen because I don't even think this is where I want the kitchen to be. It's like the front of the house. It feels quite detached from everything else that's going on. And yeah, I just want it to not look as dated as it did. And so I was like, right, what can I do? Paint the cupboards, like they're MDF laminate. Can I even paint them? I'm not even sure. We'll give it a bash. Handles, don't want to spend money on changing handles. I'll just spray paint them using like a metal spray paint. Then the countertops were like real old brown, and I was like, oh, what can I use instead of this? Did a bit of research, saw people using this like worktop adhesive. And I was like, ah, like, is that really gonna last? Like, okay, we'll just give it a go. And like I said, that was it. The tiles were like these weird multicolored tiles, and I found like a tile paint. None of this stuff I really had any idea whether it was going to have legs to kind of last a while, but I knew that it wasn't going to have to last it wasn't going to be like a forever kitchen, if that makes sense. There's another little project that's going on there, which I'll tell you about another time. But yeah, so the kitchen, this randomly was a TikTok video that went viral because I think from memory, I feel like we did everything for under 250 quid. And yeah, it's like really not done too badly. I think we are over the 2-year mark into the 3rd year of it being like this. And as I said, we've got 2 kids, everything in our house gets a real hard time. And I still, yeah, it's just it's way more of an enjoyable space to be in than it was before. It actually makes me want to come in and hang out. But like I said, for every room that's done, there's bits in the room that we just haven't done, a la these absolutely shocking things, which I really thought I had a win the other day on Facebook, and found these 2 Pookie light shades that were like cement style ones. I was like, perfect, just gonna grab those. Great place obviously to find like your bargains, and classic, didn't hear back from the seller. So the old crusty light shades are still there. They still need changing. I still need to find a little bargain to keep us going. But yeah, that is mostly the house tour. Downstairs, there's not much point in showing you that because it's not really that interesting. But that is our house and the bits and pieces that we've done. So nice out here. So yeah, so I will sign off for this week, and if you enjoy this more long form content and explanation into things, then yeah, this is the place to be. If you're not following me on TikTok and you enjoy that kind of quick little video hits, then I will pop a link below to my TikTok account, but it is Amy Reynolds Home. And yeah, welcome to our house.